Imagine you're starting a brand new team, but no one's in the same room. Hey guys, it's Margaret here from Well Coach. Today I wanted to share with you my experiences as a Scrum Master when I was standing up a brand new team during COVID lockdown in 2020. So basically today what I want to cover, and I have to admit I've got a whole bunch of notes here that I'm going to be looking at throughout this video. I want to talk about what challenges I faced. I want to talk about what worked for me and what lessons I've learned, and then some final takeaways that I have. So like I said, imagine you're starting a brand new team and no one's in the same room. When I first set up the team I was working with at that time, I never ever set up a team remotely before. You know, every time we formed new teams, before big room planning or anything like that, everybody was always in person, because that is how you get the best out of your people. You get to pick who you want to be with, you get to have food and hang out and have fun, and you know, those were all the things that we knew were good for team building as Scrum Masters. But having to go into this and actually set up this team remotely, boy was it hard. You know, not having that face-to-face interaction, missing the social cues. There was a slight lack of trust, I think, at some point during it as well, because everybody was working from home. And you know, in those early days, nobody wanted to have their video on. Nobody wanted to show, because some of us were working in our bedrooms, some of us were working in our garages. Like, you didn't want your house to actually be seen. You have to remember, back in 2020, a lot of people didn't actually have home offices set up. We were just doing the best that we could with what we had been given and in the time that we had been given. So, you know, what didn't really work well for us is that when we first kicked off this team that I was working in, we'd had a brand new person to the company join the team. So he came in and he was joining the team brand new. None of us had actually met him in person. The development manager who was in the team, who was the tech lead, and he also managed some of the people, he had met him via interview, but nobody else had met him in person. He didn't know any of us. We also had a brand new product owner starting in that team, so somebody brand new to product ownership before, had never done it before. She was starting in the team as well, so it was kind of a bit of a mixed bag of people, right? Like, so there was me. I had experience. I'd been working in teams for a long time. I was a Scrum Master. I had a good senior developer. I had a good senior test analyst, and then I had another, you know, senior developer who was joining, and then we had an intermediate developer as well, who was really struggled and who we really struggled with throughout the process in those early days, because you couldn't just leave him to actually go and do his work, because he would go down rabbit holes, or not having those senior people there that he could turn to was a real struggle. And so we found really early on that we were really challenged. We weren't able to do the same things that we didn't have the good practices. Sure, we had our daily stand up, but standing in front of a physical whiteboard you get a completely different vibe. But then, you know, everybody's sitting in front of their Jira board, and for them to have to remember to update Jira as they went, I mean, they always had to update Jira anyway. That was our tool that we used for all of our reporting, but they would do it after they had moved all the cards physically on the whiteboard in the morning after stand up. So it was just about building new practices for them. So, you know, what are some of the things that I had to learn as a Scrum Master in those really early days of setting up this team is that everything had to change. All my beliefs of you only build strong teams when you are working in the same room. All of those things that I knew, I was completely challenged by all of those. And the other thing that I needed to do was find some sort of a whiteboard that I could use virtually that would do for me what I needed to do in office. Like, we still needed to be able to do retrospectives. We still needed to be able to do team elaborations. There were all those good things the team needed. They needed to have access to their social contracts. I had to learn how to facilitate those types of workshops remotely and online. So some of the key things that I learned really early on is when I first we kind of had a reset. We got to the point where the team was just really struggling. We all decided collectively together that we needed to reset. So about 3 weeks into this team actually muddling their way through, we stopped and we had a reset, and we spent a whole day virtually online, kind of doing what we would do if we were in person, doing a bit of a team kickoff together. We played some virtual games. We discovered Miro, and we started using Miro. We did some little get to know each others, and we built our social contract, like our team agreement. What is it that we wanted to do to support each other? And we kind of had some rules that we set up for ourselves. So what we found when we were virtually online doing stand-ups is that people had the ability to waffle more, or people weren't focused. And because everybody had their cameras off in those early days, we really struggled to know who was actually paying attention rather than who was busy doing their work. So we all came to an agreement that, during stand-up times, cameras needed to be on. It was only 15 minutes. And we wouldn't expect anybody to put their camera on for any other workshops, but that was our 15 minutes to connect every day. And if that meant that if you were in your bedroom, if that meant that you had to shut your bedroom door so their family didn't see, or you had to quickly make your bed, or what it was, that was fine. We also had agreed that if any of us were feeling a little bit rubbish, we would turn on our cameras, wave hello, and then we would turn them back off again. And everybody was okay with that. One of the other things that I set out and did and created for the team, and something that I have used many, many times since then, is an all about me. So it was a sheet that I had seen on LinkedIn, and at that time it was I can't actually remember who had posted it, but I'd seen it and I thought, this is brilliant. It's it's really super visual, and I'm a visual person, and how can I make this work for my team? So I do have that resource. If that's something that you would be keen on seeing, flick me a message or add a comment in the comment section. I'm more than happy to get that shared with you. I'm also looking at doing, building a whole heap of resources that can be shared out with people as well. So I took the concept that somebody else had created, and I created my own concept. I now know that people I have coached and teams I have coached since creating that have actually used that themselves, and I get really good feedback that it's amazing to help build those team bonds. Having that really helped us. Because a lot of people had families. I had my 2 young kids at home. My husband was at home working as well. We all kind of had to work in with each other. So at that time, my husband and I had an agreement that I would do mornings, and then at midday I would stop and I would look after the kids with their schoolwork, and he would do working in the afternoons, and he would do the morning schoolwork with the kids. So we tried to find good balance, and that worked amazingly well for us. I am so blessed that it did work for us. We're all very introverted people in my household, so it's quite easy for us to kind of just go off and do what we needed to do and then come back. So the all about me file, and you know, I digress a lot and I apologize about that, but I guess this is what Real Talk is all about. The All About Me file that I actually created, that I sent to all my team, and I said, hey guys, fill this in before our workshop, and then let's all share this. We spent so long on that. You know, it was things like, what is your favorite music, and how do you find your flow? And you know, I think I added in there at one point as well, if you could go anywhere in the world right now, where would it be? And so it was really easy to do that. We also started to, you know, this was a team who wasn't working in sprints. This is a team that was working Kanban. The reason for it is because of the type of work they had. They were actually more of a support team to the platform that was being built. They were doing a lot of bug fixes. They were sort of updating a lot of the in the piece of software that we had created in the company that had been there for a long time. They were doing a lot of updates to it. They were adding different fields to reports and tweaking little wizards and all that kind of thing. There was no real huge new build going on in this space, so Kanban really worked for us. And something that we did is we did weekly kind of plannings. So we would say every week on a Monday we would plan it for an hour in the morning, and we would plan what it is that we're going to do for that in between Monday and Friday. The other thing that we did is we made sure that every day everybody had a goal. This is my goal for today. This is what I'm going to do. And all throughout the day, we were checking in with each other. You know, checking in on Teams. We had Microsoft Teams. Oh no, we had Slack. So, you know, checking in on Slack just to make sure everything was going okay. How are you going? Do you need any help? Are you blocked? If anybody had to go and deal with kids like I did, we always made sure that we were checking out. We might have, you know, once a week we would go, hey, should we all have lunch together virtually online? And we would sit down and we would have lunch together virtually online. And all these things that we were doing, all these little things that we were doing, helped us to build that trust that we needed as a team, piece by piece by piece. But with that, we also had to make sure that we weren't having too many meetings. Like, I didn't want to overload the crew with a bunch of meetings. So we didn't have retrospectives every week. We did them once every 2 to 3 weeks. We elaborated when we needed it. So if we were going to be picking up a story that we didn't know anything about, we would elaborate that. And it wasn't even the whole team if need be. It would just be the product owner and the couple of the tech person and the test specialist. So we made sure that everybody didn't spend all their time in meetings. And you know, because we all had our own managers that we were reporting to as well. As a Scrum Master, I didn't report into the development team. I actually was reporting into the portfolio team, and so I had to go to those team meetings as well. We would have full technology team meetings, and then company meetings would be online virtually as well. So there was a lot of meetings, and I had to make sure that we weren't going to be having meeting overload. And you know, in those very first weeks, we were constantly meeting overload, and you would start to, you'd get off one meeting and you go to another meeting and then another meeting. It would just be constant. So I had to be really aware of that. I set up a little board at home on my wall so that I could see what all the meetings were that we had going on. But yeah, so, you know, I know I've just talked a lot about about how it was for me, and everybody else, it's going to look different. I mean, depending on what your job is and depending on what it is that you're trying to do, you're going to face different experiences. These are just mine, These are just my experiences. I'm not going to tell you yours are wrong. I don't ever want to say that about anybody's experiences. If you think about what it is that we try to achieve as Scrum Masters, as ways of working and coaches, it's about trying to help our teams be effective and efficient. And sometimes the practices that we have had in place for so long aren't going to work, and we have to change those. And that's what I found I had to do. So any lessons I have, the biggest lessons I have from this whole experience is that don't be scared to start new. Don't be scared to be challenged by what you've always known and what you've always done, because every team is going to be different, and what every team needs is going to be different as well. So pick the things that work for your team, and honestly experiment with everything, because you never know what is and what isn't going to work for you. If you find that you are in a position where you have to set up a team fully remote, then my biggest piece of advice is don't rush into a set plan in place. Have an agenda, be willing to flex and compromise. Look for how you can still help your team be effective and efficient. Build that good team camaraderie, build that safety in the space. Find the ways that's going to work, and just be super mindful that you don't turn into a command and control, or that you're not trying to micromanage, because it's not what it's about at all. So yeah, that's just my experience. That's what it was like for me working to stand up a remote team during COVID. I hope whatever experiences you had worked well for you. Yeah, would I do it again? Maybe, if I had to, but yeah, it would be different, I'm sure. But what it has shown me, what it has taught me, is that you should be willing to experiment with everything, and sometimes the thing that we know and have known for so long isn't always the right way to do things. So yeah, but that's it for Real Talk today. I hope there's something that you can take forward. I hope there's something that I shared that you can kind of learn from, and if there's not, thanks for sticking around. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.